Mazda just had their best sales year ever by a long shot, due in large part to this, the SUV. While Mazda offers 12 different models in their lineup, 8 of which are SUVs. And what we're gonna be doing today is finding out why I think that this model, the hybrid version, which actually has a Toyota powertrain, is actually gonna put it even further ahead of the competition. And we're also gonna figure out how this compares to the beloved CX-5 that everyone loves as well. And we're gonna do that by taking a look outside. Inside, I'm gonna show you some of the features and technology of this vehicle. We're gonna try and cram a bike in the back because this vehicle purports to be a outdoorsy lifestyle SUV. And last but not least, we're gonna take it out on the road to see what it's like to drive. Mazda has long been known for some pretty great exterior designs, and frankly, the CX-50 is no exception. While this is based on the CX-5, there are a couple notable differences. It is 6 inches longer than the CX-5. It also, of course, has these wider fenders with this plastic cladding, which is made to be a little more of a rugged look, and you could even go as far as maybe say masculine to try and appeal to more buyers. This is seen here in ingot blue metallic, which is a lovely blue color, but I will say I think the tan looks best on this car because even though the car has black plastic, I do think that contrast between the tan and black plastic does look pretty good. But let me know what you think in the comments below about the looks of the CX-50. Here's where things get really interesting for 2025. They're offering this hybrid powertrain, which is directly out of the RAV4 hybrid. This is the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated motor paired with a few electric motors that combine for 219 horsepower and 163 pound-feet of torque. Now, the news here isn't so much the power figures as it is just the fact that you're getting now Toyota reliability in terms of their hybrid and also the excellent fuel economy. 39 city, 37 highway. Those are great numbers. So while traditionally the CX-5, which we'll see what this is like on the road, how it compares to that, has been an excellent driving machine, and while their powertrains have been relatively reliable, nothing really beats a Toyota, and now you have this excellent efficiency. So a great marriage of hopefully good chassis dynamics we'll see out on the road, but also an excellent powertrain. Inside the CX-50, this is a pretty nice place to be. Mazdas of recent have had the reputation of being pretty nice quality and material-wise and design-wise for the price point of like a, entry-level Japanese car. Something like a Toyota, I think this is slightly above. Honda has kind of increased their game a little bit, and I think this is probably pretty on par with what you would find in a Honda, but overall, like really high marks here from design. It's pretty simple, kind of minimalist to a certain extent. And as I mentioned, the choice of materials, especially where you touch, is pretty nice. Now, I do have some qualms here, specifically with the infotainment. This is a screen that you can sometimes touch, but also interact with this scrolly wheel thing here. I just think, to me, it should be either, like, just pick one, right? Like, if it's a touchscreen, it's touchscreen. If it's scrolly wheel. I say sometimes you can touch a screen is because, like, when you're moving, you can't interact with any of the Mazda menus, but you can interact with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. So it's just kind of like a hodgepodge. But outside of that, the fact that the screen is very far away is really the biggest problem, especially for like just being able to use the screen from a touch perspective. I'm 6'1", I have very long arms, and it's still like a reach to do anything on the screen. It may sound really dumb, but like as you use it more and more, it just becomes kind of frustrating. Now, I'm sure you get a little more used to it with this scrolly wheel, but you still kind of have to like really pay more attention than you should to be able to do stuff on there. So that's kind of a complaint of mine. As with this screen, I should mention that the backup camera only takes up like half of the screen. Even though you have this giant screen, it only populates like a bit of it. So a little bit of a bummer. Not deal breakers by any means, but something definitely worth noting. The gauge cluster is kind of nice because it has these different bezels. It's a mix of analog and digital, and I do like I said, that it's separated out. It's not just like a screen like everybody else is doing. I didn't really mention it, but physical controls for your HVAC and your heated seats, cooled seats as well in here, which is really nice. One other aspect of this that I find very annoying is this. We're parked here. You hear that? It's yelling at me because I don't have my seatbelt on. And look, I'm all about safety. I wear my seatbelt absolutely everywhere I go. But you know what? I don't always wear my seatbelt if I'm just parked in my driveway. And it's just kind of frustrating. Sometimes it's just yelling at you for, in my opinion, no apparent reason. Minor annoyance, but depending on how compulsive you are with your seatbelt even before you like start the car and put it in drive, then that might be something worth knowing. Now, in terms of the seating here, excellent front seats. Mazda, of course, is known for kind of like good driving characteristics, fun to drive, and that extends to the seats because they have a lot of support to them. You know, kind of side and thigh support is pretty nice. They hold you in well, they're comfortable, electronically controlled as well. Lumbar support, which is nice. Now, these middle row seats, they're pretty nice as well. I would say not nearly as spacious as like the RAV4 CR-V. I have just enough legroom though at 6'1" to be able to sit behind myself. It's just the thing is my head kind of grazes the ceiling. Not a big deal. Most people will be able to fit back there comfortably, although you can't recline those middle row seats, which you can in a lot of other cars. So maybe a little bit of a point against. Outside of that, let's see if we can throw a bike in the back to see how usable that rear hatch is.
When I last tested the CX-5, it did not excel in the bike test. The CX-5 is small in its category of SUVs, and the rear opening just isn't wide or tall enough to fit a larger bike. With the CX-50 being bigger, I was hoping things would be different, but unfortunately they aren't. It seems like the CX-50 growth dimensionally is mainly attributed to the length, so unfortunately the rear opening is extremely similar or maybe identical, meaning it can't fit my extra large frame 29er mountain bike. Just like the CX-5 though, I can fit my smaller road bike, and the added length does help a bit so I don't have to move up the front seats. As always, if you enjoy the bike test, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and leaving a comment below so you don't miss future videos.
Off on a scenic drive with some fresh snowfall in the CX-50. This is an interesting vehicle because in many ways, the way I'm looking at this is a very niche product for a bit of a niche buyer. And the reason I say that is this. Mazdas are known for being good handling cars, right? Regardless if it's a car, SUV, that zoom nomenclature that they've had for so long, being the whole like good chassis dynamics, fun to drive on a twisty road, even if it's like a regular SUV, that's still very much present here, and we're going to get into the details on that. But when you pair that with a hybrid powertrain with the eCVT, things do get a little interesting. So what I'm saying is, like, someone who values a fun driving experience from a chassis dynamic, how do they feel about an eCVT, right? It's like a weird kind of crossover, and it's like a weird kind of, I'm not gonna say weird kind of person, it's just a special kind of person that is going to appreciate that. So let's get into the details of why I'm saying that and what every bit of this car is like. Let's start first with the suspension. It is, as I mentioned, great, like most Mazdas in terms of good handling, fun to drive. The ride is on the firmer side. So if you are somebody who values just outright comfort, I'm not saying that this car isn't for you, but there are better options. The CR-V rides more comfortable. The RAV4 rides more comfortable. The ride frequency in those is more tuned for comfort, where this is more hunker down to the road. It's by no means, beats you up or abusive or anything like that, but it's definitely firmer than most other SUVs. And the trade-off, or the positive of that, is the fact that you're getting really good handling. This corner is very flat. The inputs are all super linear. The steering is great. The brakes are great. I do love a good brake pedal. I'm a bit of a sucker for that. Nice firm pedal, even for a hybrid, which is saying something. Sometimes that handoff of electric regeneration to physical brakes is less than ideal, but it's all really good here. Now, the one thing that we do need to talk about, though, is the torsion beam rear end. So what is a torsion beam rear end? Well, it's a much simpler version of a rear end, and more, I guess in some ways you could say, primitive to a multi-link rear end. Why am I bringing this up at all? People are probably tuning out right now because they're like, dude, you're getting too technical. Here's why it matters. The CX-5 that this car is heavily based on, they're near identical, is a multi-link rear suspension. And in the performance car world, in the chassis dynamic world, that is a superior suspension. This torsion beam that Mazda chose for mainly two reasons: cost cutting, which it is what it is, it's cheaper to do a torsion beam, but also packaging, meaning that, you know, from a space perspective, this is a better option. What I was very curious to know is, do I notice a difference? I reviewed that CX-5 less than a month or two ago, and I got to be honest, if there is a difference, it is so minute that it's near enough no difference. Maybe you could say over a speed bump, I noticed like the rear end is a little more like crashy, and also mid-corner bumps, not quite as composed as the CX-5, but guys, like I said, I am splitting hairs. Like, if I were somebody who was considering this CX-50 over the CX-5, but I was concerned about the multi-link rear suspension not being present, don't be. Like, this is still great. It's everything Mazda. It handles really well. It's not abusive over bumps. It doesn't really like massively unsettle the rear end. So bravo to Mazda for doing a good job here. Don't let kind of tech specs on a sheet dictate your purchase. This is still very good. Now, the other piece that we need to talk about, and the reason I'm kind of like harping on all this chassis dynamics, is this hybrid powertrain, which of course is an eCVT. Put my foot down here. Just kind of drones on, right? Let's do it again. There's no gears, right? There's no shifting. There's no, you know, wah, like a traditional vehicle. And that's what you get in the regular Mazdas, the CX-50, a 6-speed traditional automatic. This is the eCVT. You know, it's not as inspiring, of course, as a more traditional transmission. So that's where I'm saying it's a bit odd. Like, what kind of person is into like good handling but doesn't care about the engine transmission as much? I'm sure that person exists, and for that person, this car is perfect because it is like very unique in that regard. But that's something that you need to ask yourself: how much do you prioritize that kind of stuff? This powertrain, look, it's great. Like, it's good for its intended purpose, which is getting excellent fuel economy. It makes okay power. We're at elevation here. This is a naturally aspirated motor. You know, it's not making its most power. It does, of course, have an electric boost with these electric motors, which is good. And, you know, it's never dangerously slow. I would say it's adequately powered for the vehicle size and whatnot, but it's not particularly inspiring. So that's ultimately what the trade-off is. Comparing this to the CX-5, as we'll kind of wrap this all up, you know, they're so similar, but I don't really see much downside to getting the CX-50 over the CX-5. Yes, theoretically, you get an inferior rear suspension, but as I've mentioned, you don't really notice it. You get a little more space. The CX-5 is a really small, in today's day and age, SUV. This gets you 6 more inches, a little more space. Now, the bummer part, of course, is that rear opening for styling purposes and whatnot is quite small, but you do get a little more space in the back, which is certainly welcome. So overall, I'm intrigued by this thing. Like I said, I've kind of had to wrap my head around like who the buyer is. We've kind of summed up who that is, and I think it's a great product. For Mazda to go with this Toyota powertrain, it's a fantastic combo. Good handling, it's going to be super reliable, it's going to last you a very long time, and it's going to get good fuel economy. And I think that's really, as we sum this up, who this is for. Somebody who wants to buy a vehicle, hold on to it for a long time. Yeah, you could lease it, but why would you? This is going to last, and if you like it, you're going to like it for a long time, and it's going to treat you well. So excellent vehicle. I think they're going to sell a ton of these. They make a whole lot of sense between looks, practicality, and efficiency. So let me know what you think in the comments below if you made it this far in the video. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. and consider hitting that like and subscribe button if you did make it this far, and leave a comment below so I know that you're watching and what you think of these videos lately. Been enjoying making them. See you guys in the next one.